Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. We go behind the scenes to see how single malt whiskey is made, as well as an insight into the special techniques used in the Macallan Distillery. There are several alcohol brands out there, but only a few are as exquisite as single malt whiskey. This kind of whiskey has been produced for centuries now, and although the production process is relatively simple, only companies like Macallan, which have been in the business for many years, have proved to be the true masters of malt whiskey. The whiskey production process proves there is beauty in simplicity, and in this video, we'll be highlighting this process. Macallan has been in existence since 1824. In these 199 years, the production process of their single malt whiskey remains unchanged, and the main ingredients used remain to be barley and water. Even before the company's inception, these two have always been the basis of every single malt whiskey. The Highlands in Scotland are known for their vast grain fields, therefore, it's a well-known location for malt whiskey production. It's no surprise that Macallan's main distillery is also located in northeast Scotland. Apart from the vast grain fields present in the region, Macallan's distillery also gets its water supply from River Spey, and because of the absence of limestone in the region, the water from this river is soft and has a pure taste which influences the flavor of the whiskey. Now that we've talked about the quality of the raw materials used to produce single malt whiskey, let's take a look at the production process of one of the largest selling single malt whiskeys in the world. The first step is the cultivation of barley, and since this kind of whiskey is made exclusively using barley, this is a pretty important step. A large portion of barley used by Macallan is grown locally in Scotland. However, the grain fields available cannot meet the barley demand by Macallan's and other whiskey companies in the country. Because of this, the company imports barley grains from England and other European countries. However, the climate and soil conditions on Scottish grain fields make the locally produced barley have higher quality than the imported ones. They have higher starch content, which is a necessary factor in the production of single malt whiskey, and the barley variants that meet this requirement are Optic, Concerto, Belgravia, Propino, Quench, and Shuffle. Once they become mature, the desired barley variants are harvested and put through the next production stage. Next, barley grains are malted to produce malt, which is referred to as the soul of every malt-based drink. Barley may be the base of single malt whiskey, but malt is responsible for the taste, color, and flavor of the whiskey. The first step in malting barley is known as steeping. First, the barley grains are cleaned and soaked in water to activate the production of different enzymes present in each grain, which help enhance the flavor of the barley. After being soaked in water for a few hours, the grains are spread on malting floors for anywhere between 24 to 48 hours. The moisture in the grains, as well as the aeration, initiates the fermentation of the starch content of the barley grains, which is important to produce high-quality malt. The next stage of the malting process commences after the steeping process has been completed. This stage, known as germinating, involves the growth and modification of the grains. Rootlets emerge from the kernel and outer husks of each grain, and these growths are caused by the enzymes which were activated during steeping. The temperature, moisture levels, and airflow levels are controlled to ensure a high quality and consistent germination process. The maltster also sprays the grains frequently, and because of the varying germination rates, the grains are rotated from time to time. The germination process takes an average of 5 days, and by the end of it, the grains have become what is called green malt. The green malt grains are dried to prevent germination from continuing. If germination continues, all the starch reserves in each grain, which are essential at the brewery, could be used up by the sprouts germinating from the kernels. Therefore, the germination process is interrupted when the green malts are spread on grids in the kiln, and hot air is applied from below. The drying continues until the moisture content of the beans have reduced to about 4%. This stage contributes significantly to the flavor of the whiskey, and it also helps in color development. At this point, the malting process is complete, and the freshly produced malt is transported to a silo where it is stored after being cleaned. The cleaning process removes unwanted sprouts, husk, and dust from the malted barley, and the clean malt is stored in a silo. After storing for a few days, the malt is bagged, packaged, and transported to Macallan's Distillery in Scotland, where the rest of the production process takes place. At the brewery, the dried malt is first sent to the malt mill, where it is processed into a roughly blended flour called grist in preparation for mashing. Mashing of the malt is done in a mash tun, and it involves soaking the grist in hot water to extract all the sugar and starch reserves present in it. If the grist is too smooth, the flour will stick together during mashing, and it'll be impossible to extract all the sugar. So the factory workers ensure that the grist has the appropriate level of smoothness. The malt is mashed 3 times, first with water at 65 degrees Celsius, then 80 degrees Celsius, and finally at 95 degrees Celsius. Each time, sugar is extracted from the malt, and the sugar solution is passed through a cooler to reduce its temperature to about 20 degrees. Meanwhile, the malt residue called mash is filtered out, dried, and transported to specialized plants where it is used to produce animal feed. But for the sugar solution, yeast is added after it's been cooled to initiate fermentation, thus resulting in the production of alcohol. The yeast-sugar solution results in a sweet liquid called wort, which is poured into wooden vessels called washbacks for about 2 to 4 days until the fermentation process is complete. In the washbacks, yeast acts on the sugars and converts them to alcohol, and a colorless gas called carbon dioxide. Washbacks are usually made from Oregon or cypress wood because of their resistance to fungi, and they are sealed with lids during the fermentation process to prevent foam from the sugar solution from spilling over. Also, the lids protect the solution from bacteria and other microorganisms that could otherwise contaminate it. At the end of the fermentation process, the sugar solution is now called wash and has an alcohol volume of about 8%. The wash is passed from the washbacks into a steel vessel called a wash still, where the first distillation process takes place. The liquid is heated, and when it reaches a temperature of 75 degrees Celsius, the alcohol begins to evaporate and is collected by a condenser which liquefies it and empties it in a second still called the spirit still. The distillation process is repeated, and this time, the alcohol is collected and stored in another vessel called a spirit safe. At this point, the alcohol strength of the liquid is over 20%. However, the whiskey production doesn't begin until the alcohol is poured into specially created wooden vessels called casks, where they mature for 3 years. At the Macallan Brewery, whiskey is mellowed in bourbon oak casks and sherry oak casks. The casks are filled from the spirit safe through the bunghole on the side of the cask, which is later sealed with a cork. Afterwards, the casks are weighed, labeled, and rolled to the warehouse, where they are stored for at least 3 years in accordance with Scottish laws. After the maturation process, the whiskey is ready to be packaged and shipped worldwide so customers can enjoy it all over the world. What do you think about Macallan whiskey? Leave your answers in the comments section below. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for new videos.